Hey guys, welcome back to the Paladins Alliance. I know it's been a while, but as you might have noticed, I was gone for vacation. I was in India, I was in London to meet some esports folks. And I'm finally back, finally able to actually put out a video. I had some recorded along my time in vacation, but I'm finally back. I wanted to consume all of Cologne instead of actually putting out a video instantaneously. So I could give you a quality video after watching as much as possible. I couldn't actually catch all of Blast Fall groups. And I do think that as a whole, I don't think it's good to create assumptions on teams and players off of just that event. It does feel like a bit of a warm-up in that regard. But the talk of the town, G2 winning IEM Cologne. Are they back? Are they going to start a new streak as they did before? Or is this just another flash in the pan? Is this just a streaky G2? We'll kind of have to wait and see. But for me personally, I do think that there was a lot of situations in where NiKo absolutely tore through the defenses that was presented towards him and kind of made the mid-rounding very easy for Huxi to call under, and in certain scenarios just be the end-all de facto reason why they would win rounds in the first place. And I wanted to just make a video on him. I haven't actually made a video on some of the best players in Counter-Strike. I have definitely gone through a lot of the more underrated players with supportive elements like Perfecto and Inters. And I've talked about a lot of the calling from a lot of players like Kerrigan and Snappy. But I haven't actually talked about players like Simple, players like Device, and players like NiKo, because you usually just assume that they are the pinnacle of CS. But I mean, some of the statistics that I was getting out of this match and this entire tournament, honestly, off of the T side from NiKo was just so obscene that I had to actually talk about it. I had to delve into it myself, watch back some of the demos, especially just NiKo's POV on that T side, and see what he did for this roster and why it was just so easy for G2 to just roll through this tournament with seemingly only a couple of maps in the pool actually being played altogether and being rewarded because of it. I mean, you can see in the player statistics off of both sides, yes, he has the highest rating, and you actually go to the CT side, and he's not even in the top 5 of best CT-sided players. Sure, he's putting up a respectable, and respectable is a very loose term here. 1.29 rating is a fantastic CT-sided rating. But you have your uppers there, you have your Monacies, your Brokies, your Devices, and you have those star players like Frozen and Stown on Heroic and Mouse. But where it really shocks everybody is the amount of damage that NiKo can put in on that T side. 1.41 rating over the likes of Zywoo, Shiro, Acor, Afro, Device, all T-oppers on the rifle. I mean, that is just, I mean, you don't get numbers like that all too often. And NiKo's been pumping out these kinds of T-sided numbers for years now. I mean, the longevity that this guy has, and even just on G2 alone, is just so sick to see. That, I mean, it is just bonkers numbers outright. I mean, just look at all of these numbers, and if I just pull up the player average as well, it's just shocked the system, to be completely honest with you. And I know everybody's been talking about it, but I wanted to just showcase a couple of rounds that really tell the tale as to why NiKo is as good as he is. Before we actually get into the rounds themselves, I also created a little bit of a scatter plot. I know people love these statistics, and I definitely love them too. So I wanted to find a new perspective to kind of construct a narrative as to how successful NiKo was on that T side and where he is actually getting his rating from. And so I've taken the T side attempt rate on the x-axis, the success rate of these actual T-sided attempts on the y-axis, and tried to showcase which of these players succeeded and where NiKo lies on this graph essentially. And as you can see, the red dot being NiKo's success at around 33% in terms of the amount of opening attempts, and a whopping 60% of success rate on these opening attempts all throughout Cologne. And granted, they also played the most maps, or one of the most amount of maps being as deep in the tournament as they were. So these numbers are coming off the back of a very large sample size. And then you compare that with the likes of, Device going pretty deep in the tournament, not going for as many opening attempts on the T side with that AWP, but coming out at near 70%. Same for Zywoo, but similarly, they have two players like Stare and Flames, respectively, to have that heavy lifting. So those numbers aren't necessarily the most jaw-dropping. Simple having JL with his high success rate. And then you also have some players like Mao's that are still trying to get used to their new system. Zershin going for a ton of attempts, but not as successful. Shuhei donning a lot of more aggressive swings as well, but not necessarily showing up. Axile only having 3 maps, so that number is a little bit skewed in terms of the amount of numbering opening attempts and the success rate. But, you know, the shining beacon here is Rops and NiKo, both on the rifles. Rops surprisingly having quite a high success rate and a high attempt rate, but NiKo is just the star of the show, kind of head and shoulders above the rest of the competition. Of course, it's not anything jaw-dropping like you've seen in, you know, in terms of aggression of Art, or, you know, the consistency of Zywoo and Simple, as you've seen in videos that Hawka has put out. But it is still just very, very cool to see just the amount of impact NiKo has. And this is a great sign that, you know, it does hold up in terms of statistics as well. But now I'll actually showcase to you the versatility and the kind of de facto reasoning as to why NiKo is just so valuable on a team like G2, and why the life of HooXi can get so much more easier if he has such a world-class player like him on his squad. I wanted to start with the effectiveness of NiKo on Inferno. It's a map that G2 regularly picked throughout this tournament and was constantly rewarded win after win, an insane win percentage, and it was coming off the back of insane T-side hauls, map after map after map, and it came down to just the proficiency of NiKo on Banana and the raw mechanics that he was able to show should he get to the post-plant stage. And you can see even at the highest of levels in the semifinal against Astralis, he looked so comfortable in just the most pressure-filled scenarios, and he made it look so easy, so meticulously crafted. And we'll just get into it straight away. I'm sure you guys have all seen this ace and the kind of work that he's able to put in with just the Galil and a Glock. But the way in which he actually gets through this round via just sheer mechanics is just incredible. I'm just going to decrease the volume because I don't want to berate your ears here. But just as usual, charges up Banana, has some standard protocols here alongside HooXi. HooXi always tries to take point in some of these fights, but it still seems to me that NiKo takes the first engagement itself. Smoke off in CT, smoke off in coffins, and they're completely in. HooXi doesn't actually get rewarded with the first kill this time around. Stare decapitates him, but look at how NiKo actually decides to section off angles here and synthesize information around him before actually starting to take gunfights. And once he basically has all this information, it's like it's impossible for him to lose a round. He's just so aware of where these players are, and his mechanics will just take him to that next level to secure the round. So as soon as he gets flashed off, re-smoke CT, understanding that there's a player CT, should be multiple player CT. At this point in time, player should have pushed that coffin smoke since they're in that man disadvantage, and NiKo has to get a little bit more proactive, so he pushes into first oranges, tries to catch a little bit of a timing on a player that might get a little bit overzealous, trying to get a little cheeky with the positioning and whatnot. And so he waits for a little bit longer, and it does offer itself up to him. He gets the kill on the stair as the molly into new box comes in. And now NiKo can kind of just sit here and just peruse the scenario, let JKS take a little bit of information in, and basically, again, synthesize information and deploy an end game strategy to get himself through the second round. So he waits just for a little bit longer, reclaims that Galil, and you can just see there on the smoke fade, just instantly tapping away or having short bursts there onto the pool player, onto the fountain player as well. And now in the 1v2, NiKo is in the prime of the round. He understands what's at stake, and he understands that he's got to do all the heavy lifting, even in terms of information as well. Spots out Borup via bullets and has to switch to the Glock. Tough shot here after Borup actually cannot land the complete mag, and he hears Device running up with the mag 7, and this is the kill that actually is so sick to see. Just one flash on the back of NiKo, throws it and swings with the flashbang together, and Device, although he misses that first shot, is completely blind to the second shot, and so he can't actually convert the 10 HP NiKo, and NiKo comes out on top with a beautiful little ace there. And this is all happening with just the roar of the Cologne crowd at the back of NiKo and G2, and he still makes it look like he's playing just a simple pug with the way he's with these meticulously checking out angles, staying stable on first oranges, and just committing to just some beautiful fights with some great mechanics on display as well. So a combination of just raw intelligence and just raw mechanics, and this is why he is the best rifler of all time, and why he's largely considered by the rest of the community as such as well. And now round number 5 is the classic aspect of NiKo and the amount of power that he holds over specific positions. And you'll see, I mean, I don't have too many rounds picked out throughout this video, but this round specifically should holistically sum up how NiKo can be such a huge boon for G2, where he can take over one part of the map all on his own, and he has so many different ideas to send over to his opponents that HooXi has the world as his oyster, and he can always rely on NiKo to cover this part of the map without dying or without giving away too much resources, and always giving a lot of advantages to G2 in the long term in terms of entries, in terms of space taken, and in terms of information gathered. So we'll just showcase basically a textbook play from NiKo in the semifinal again against Astralis, and this is kind of why they would get so many T-sided hauls, because he would have these momentous rounds that would just swing the tide completely into G2's favor, and they can just run away with halves time in and time out. And they did it throughout Cologne, and they have been, I mean, throughout last season as well. So couple protocol nades for NiKo to be safe within Banana and segment off half wall fights and sandbags fights. Gets rewarded pretty easily. No real aim duels, takes a little bit of damage, but as soon as that actually takes place, NiKo decides to shoulder bait a little bit. I'm not necessarily sure if Device saw too much here, but he did miss a shot, and he tries to go ahead of that coffin smoke and can't actually capitalize on it. And so that's where, you know, you see this different aspect of NiKo, where he decides to entry in and take matters into his own hands and try to basically manhandle Astralis and get the round on the board. And you can basically just see he just throws himself into the gunfights through the Molotov, maneuvers himself around the utility as well. Stair is completely caught off guard, and there's no room for Astralis back into this. They have to instantaneously save, and NiKo has single-handedly just won them the round. And this happens so often for G2. They get so many free rounds because NiKo can just charge up, can sit on car for as long as possible, and essentially entry no matter what angle the CT takes. He's guaranteed a frag, be it coffins with a quick tap, or a player in transition moving in to fountain side as well. NiKo is so willing to get those opening kills, and it's just such an extra perspective for G2 to rely on, and they just guarantee themselves rounds because of that. So this is one of the many aspects of why NiKo's is so fantastic, right? You have the clutch ability, as we showcased in the round previous, and now you have the entry potential that he has on maps like Inferno with his entry capability. I mean, you'll see on maps like Nuke. I haven't actually seen much Nuke from them as of Cologne, so we don't have any rounds picked up for that, but you can see his work that he does outside. You have Ancient, where he is the B aggressor, does a lot of work there in terms of Banana, and then you also have maps like Anubis, where he tries to fight in middle a lot of the times, or even on that B extremity. So there is a lot of situations where he does take that proactive entry pathing, but we'll showcase a little bit more of just the raw mechanics and the versatility that NiKo provides. I actually wanted to pull most of my rounds from this final against Ents, but surprisingly, NiKo didn't have much T-sided impact just because there wasn't too many T-sides actually just being played outright. You obviously had Nuke being a blowout for G2, and then as soon as you moved over to Mirage, I think this is where he did the bulk of his work, and it's definitely the most interesting aspect of NiKo in terms of G2's map pool. It's the map in which he's not necessarily on one part of the map, he's all over this map entirely, and has a lot of different looks to him, especially on Mirage. But then you move forward to maps like Anubis and to maps like Ancient. Anubis, he didn't have as much success, just being, I think it is still a new map, and I don't think that he's cut out his identity on it just yet. He tries to play B extremities, he tries to play mid, as I said previously, but doesn't have too much success. And actually, on Ancient, a large part of the T rounds that they got were on that A side trying to abuse Diha in back temple. And NiKo's B pathings on Banana weren't as successful. They had a couple of counters to set up with Madden. So I didn't actually pull out any rounds there either. So the last two rounds that I pulled out are just from Mirage, because as you'll see, is he doesn't necessarily have a set play or set spot on the map that he's going to on a regular basis. He's kind of feeling out the map on his own and trying to basically, again, just take in information and see what he can do with that and set himself up for success and have G2 play around him in that sense. And that actually makes for a really complex T side for G2 and a very difficult situation for their CTs to read into the plays, because you never know where NiKo's actually going to pop up. And as soon as he does, things get very difficult if he does get that opening kill or just equalizing kill somewhere else on the map. So we'll get into this first round in particular. And it's just a mid play. He'll basically stay alive for as long as possible. And he understands the value of his life as well. It's not like he's throwing himself into these gunfights all the time, right? He's understanding that he does carry a lot of weight on this roster. And if he goes down, a lot of the punch that these G2 T sides have kind of falls away. And NiKo understands this and will basically just showcase why he is just so powerful. So the kind of aura that he carries here has a lot of utility dumped onto him, but he stays alive for as long as possible, gets chunked down to 51, nades, mollies, all that good stuff from Ents to try to flush him out, but he doesn't actually move. It doesn't even show any utility either. He waits for other contact to be taken elsewhere on the map before he decides to pounce, right? So Diha is here, Snappy's here as well, and you do have a con player in Madden to boot, but they'll take a little bit of underpass contact and I believe a little bit of B contact as well. And this will basically prime in NiKo to start his maneuvering up mid. They smoke off window, they smoke off top con, and here comes NiKo in cat. Catches a beautiful little timing, especially after noticing that top con is smoked off as well. And this basically makes the B split so easy for G2, especially now that NiKo's made his way all the way into ladder. Gets a nice timing onto Diha, and spots out Snappy as well, or I believe that was Madden. So catches a rotate as well. They should be able to get the bomb plant momentarily, but they can pause for as long as they want, because now NiKo has this beautiful little silent drop here, and Snappy is just completely unawares. m0NESY gets the opening on B as well, and now NiKo can just maintain so much presence, right? Nertz has to give so much presence of mind that NiKo could still be here. Is caught in transition. It's only Madden left up in this, and sure, there is still potential for a clutch here, but there are too many men to actually deal with, and NiKo shuts out the round for G2 pretty much single-handedly, just showing his value of his life at the top of mid, and then showcasing the beautiful little timing that he can just open up a round for G2 with the timings in ladder, and then holding rotations over in window. So we've seen the clutch ability of NiKo, we've seen the entry capabilities of NiKo, and now we've seen the attention to detail that he has in terms of the value of his life. He showcases that he is still very willing to take it a little bit slower, to be a little bit more passive, and to catch a couple more timings, and he does it a lot specifically on Mirage. So this last round that I've picked out is just to showcase that, you know, NiKo can also be a pack player. He doesn't necessarily need to be on the extremities searching for an entry. He doesn't need to be a player that has to go in first or anything of the sort. He can just be a pack player that goes in second and third and still put in some major work for the squad regardless. So this time around, he's going to be coming up through underpass via his cousin Hunter, and Hooksy will come in from top mid. So a simple mid take here, and no real gunfights being taken by Ents this time around in terms of the mid crunch. They've been giving mid quite often to G2, and NiKo is well aware of this and actually takes advantage of it quite often, as you'll see as this round progresses. So Hooksy and Hunter will try to scale up through connector and take duels that way. And meanwhile, NiKo is trying to basically involve himself in the fight elsewhere by self-boosting himself into window himself. So they try to get this kill on a Nertz. They can't capitalize. And here comes that self-boost as soon as Nertz's AWP is spotted out. Now that NiKo is here, he waits for a little bit of a timing until Hunter takes contact. Then he goes into the fight in Murder Hole. Has a little bit of an awkward movement there and a labored spray against D-Hub, but still rights the ship, kill nonetheless into the 3v2. And there's still a dicey scenario with Madden all the way in CT and that rotation coming in from Snappy. But again, great intuition from NiKo to get that quick little burst on a Snappy. Even though he's on 25 health, he has such an, I mean, it looks like such an easy fight for him. And now into the 2v1, and very aware that he has to support his teammate in Hunter. Coming back, 10 seconds left on this clock. Molly's off CT and still tries to duel with Hunter. But even though Madden gets the kill, NiKo understands that time is low, swings out, wins the 1v1. And again, just great proactivity from NiKo to showcase another magnificent round from him. And rounds like these happen time in and time out for this roster, and specifically from NiKo. Huge openings, as we showed on Inferno. Big clutch ability on rounds like this and the round that I showed previously in Inferno. And especially just the ability to value his own life in terms of the aura that he carries, the power that he carries for G2's T sides all as a whole. So that just about does it on the video on NiKo. I mean, Cologne was very exciting. We had an absolutely insane bracket, so much potential across so many of these different rosters, and yet G2 still came out on top. I'm really excited to see whether or not this is the return of G2, whether this is consistency for them, or if it was just NiKo and m0NESY putting on an absolute show, and it just becomes a more occasional thing in the CS space. Regardless, I still wanted to give NiKo his dues. He's been putting up some insane T-sided numbers throughout this entire year, and for so many years at this point, that I did want to still make a video to kind of see why that's the case, how much versatility that he has in his game, and why he can fit on so many rosters, and why he is just the star on every roster that he's a part of, and how he's changed his roles over so many different periods of time and has just been electrifying in all of them and then some, right? So overall, very excited to see more NiKo as usual, and very excited to see more G2. But that's going to do it for me on the Paladins Alliance channel. Hopefully we can kind of stick to a weekly schedule now that I'm back. I'm planning on more Rescope episodes as well, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, check out 4-3. We're a little bit disjointed on the actual recording, but the first episode is out right now on Extra's channel, so definitely check that out. Really proud of that project. Really excited to have some cool guests on there, and definitely check that out when you get the time. But as far as this channel is concerned, stay tuned for more Rescope, stay tuned for more analysis, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.